After discussing with plenty of early stage SaaS founders the past couple of months, I realized that the funding/financing path until the Series A has changed quite a bit. Before, the majority of SaaS startups followed the same pattern with an early pre-seed/BA angel round of a couple hundreds of thousands of dollars, followed by a seed round between 1 to 4 millions, before the Series A, which is usually above 5 millions. But now that the SaaS market is mature, I see more configurations. Some startups, for example, will bootstrap their way until the Series A, completely skipping the pre-seed and seed rounds. Others raise a pre-seed, but will fall into a seed death valley where their company doesn't appeal to investors until they reach Series A metrics/milestones. As an early stage investor, it's increasingly important for me to see which path a startup will likely follow, because it can dictate how you are going to plan the financing of this company and the milestones they need to reach over the course of the next 2 to 5 years. In this video, I will share with you the overall framework that I use, and in another video, I will share the different paths and patterns that I see at the moment on the market. The starting point of our journey is the day you start working on your startup. And when it comes to financing the early days of your company, you have mainly 3 options. The first option is the self-financing one. Some founders manage to put a bit of money to the side that they can tap into. Others finance these early days by doing some freelance work on the side, or by getting some local subsidies and other government-backed initiatives, like in France, where many founders use unemployment money to fund the first 12 months of their startup. The second option is to take outside financing. If you are lucky to have people around you who can contribute to your journey, taking a bit of friends and family money is usually a good option. It's rarer, but if you are a successful repeat entrepreneur, or if your founding team has amazing profiles and is on a hot market, you can also raise with VC firms at that stage. When it comes to your financing path going forward, the main question to answer at that stage is how long do you think it will take you to reach the next milestone, aka an MVP with real usage, meaning a product that at least a minimum of users really use and not a leaky bucket. I know it's impossible to precisely evaluate how long it will take you, but it can be useful to try to narrow down a broad range based on your starting conditions. On the pain point side, do you start with a clear idea and good knowledge of the pain point you want to solve? Or do you just have a market in mind but need to conduct a lot of customer discovery to discover precisely the pain point worth solving? On the product side, do you have a precise idea of the product you want to build, or are you starting from a blank page? In terms of team and HR, can you build this MVP with the founding team, or do you need to hire people/pay developers to do it? I saw some founding teams who had a clear idea of what they wanted to build, very often due to their previous experience, and they managed to build an MVP within 6 months. But I saw teams that also knew what they wanted to build, but needed more than 18 to 24 months to build the MVP because the product was complex or because it required a lot of polish. On the other side of the spectrum, I saw many teams that just had a broad idea of the market they wanted to address and needed more than 18 months of customer discovery before they could come up with an MVP. In my framework, the first major milestone is an MVP that, when you put it in the hands of your users, provides some value to them. AKA, not every user is leaving the product. At least some stay and keep using it. I think it's the first major milestone because once you reach that stage, you stop operating completely in the dark, and it validates several important things on which to build the foundations of your business. In terms of financing options, at that stage, it mainly depends on the market you are in and how promising your early usage metrics look like. If you have promising early product metrics and you are on a market that VCs like/understand, then you can raise a pre-seed round with early stage VC firms. Another option worth considering is to apply to a top tier incubator such as YC. They do not necessarily require a product with real usage, but from what I saw, it can help. If you are not in a market that VCs like/understand, or if you don't have outstanding early product metrics, then you'll probably need to continue the self-financing path until the next milestone. The next important milestone in my framework is the monetization validation one, and how long it will take you to reach the 1 to 10K of MRR range. So the question at that stage are, can you rapidly monetize your early adopters? And if not, how long will it take to build the missing features that will convince them to pay for your product? Also an important one, do the founders have what it takes to ask for money, or do they feel like there's never enough features before they can monetize? Again, here are so many different configurations. Sometimes the MVP and monetization milestones go hand in hand, and some founders manage to monetize directly the MVP. I saw other cases where it took much longer to monetize a SaaS product despite the fact that they had active users already. It's especially the case when the product is a nice to have and not a must have yet. It's a tricky situation, as you can have users who tell you that they like your product, but on the other hand, they do not want to pay for it. Another common situation is when you have founders who keep pushing away the monetization test. The next milestone of our framework is to get users to pay for your product. This is a big leap because it shows the willingness to pay for a product. The early monetization stage, basically the 1 to 10K MRR, is usually reached without having a real go-to-market strategy in place with a dedicated team. It's often the founders who close the first early adopters as customers and grow the MRR through a combination of early sales and marketing tactics, as well as a bit of word of mouth. In terms of financing options, it's when you start to have more options available because you now have a working product that some people are willing to pay. So a lot of aspects are now de-risked. The option number one is if you have the luxury to keep bootstrapping and finance your company through the revenue you generate. It's definitely the best option to pursue if you can. The second option is when you have promising product metrics and you are on a market that VCs like or understand. Then you can raise a pre-seed or early seed rounds with VC firms, potentially with top-tier firms. And finally, if you are not on a market that VCs like or understand, then it can be potentially hard to raise with them. This is why many founders at that stage raise syndicate rounds with BAs, a couple of hundreds of thousands of dollars, or turn to investment vehicles that are alternatives to traditional VCs. The next important milestone in my framework is to reach the 50K MRR threshold. And how long it will take you to reach it really depends on how long it will take you to come up with the first working go-to-market strategy. Do you have a clear idea of the relevant go-to-market strategy or not? Can you put in place a first playbook of this GTM strategy? And if yes, can you execute the first iteration yourself to reach the first 50K? Or do you need to hire people to do so? If reaching the 1 to 10K MRR range is very much dependent on the product and the early scrappy sales and marketing tactics, to reach the 50K threshold, the go-to-market aspect really becomes important. It's also what investors want to see at that stage. Are you able to show the first proof of a repeatable GTM strategy that you will scale during the next phase? I saw many scenarios here. I saw some founders who never really escaped velocity and got stuck below the 10 to 20K MRR range because they couldn't put in place a working GTM strategy. I also saw some teams that spent more than 18 to 24 months to reach the first monetization milestones and suddenly exploded and spent only 6 months between the first dollar of revenue and this 50K threshold. And you do have also the in the middle scenario where the growth until 50K is actually slow and can take more than 12 to 18 months. Reaching the 50K MRR milestone usually means that you manage to find a first GTM strategy that works for your product. It's rare that you reach this level of MRR without a first structured sales and marketing approach. This is why at that stage, your financing options will mostly depend on how repeatable this first GTM is and if you can scale it or not. The first option is the bootstrapping one. If you grow fast enough to have the luxury to self-finance your company and not take any outside money, then it's probably the best option you can choose at that stage. The second option is if you show signs of high velocity, aka you grow your revenue or user base very fast, and you show that you have found a first sales and marketing playbook that is repeatable. Then you can probably raise a seed round with VC firms. However, if your first GTM doesn't look repeatable or scalable, or if you are in a market that VCs don't believe in, then despite reaching the threshold, you can have a hard time raising money. It's what I call the seed death valley, where you have to reach Series A types of milestones to attract VCs. This is why to finance this stage, you'll probably need to continue the self-funding path. At that point, what really counts is how you can continue to grow the different components of your company. Can you continue to develop a product that is more and more valuable to your users? And can you accelerate your go-to-market strategy and build a well-oiled sales and marketing machine? Once you pass the 50K MRR threshold, the questions of velocity and scalability are really what constrain the options you have to build your business.